Good evening. It's Monica from Life is Art, and it's Wednesday. Let's create. I hope things are coming through okay. Um, Sometime between our last live video on Sunday and our live video today, YouTube has changed entirely. So it took me an extra several minutes to sort it all out. So I'm not yet seeing the video come live for me. Hopefully it is going live for you. If you're watching live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. And if you're watching later on replay, you can say replay. And yeah, I'm still not sure. If you are seeing the video live, could you just pop a little note in the comments saying we can see you? Because I still see that it's waiting for it to start. Let me just check. No, it says it's going. So, I'm not sure what's happening there. I see that my mom is watching. Hey, Mom. If you're listening and you see what's happening, can you can you let me know in the comments whether you can see the video starting? That would be much appreciated. Alrighty. Let's see. You know what? I think there are two different links, and that's what's the problem. So, my apologies. I am going to see if I can get rid of one. I don't think I can, but it's quite possible that I posted the wrong video link. So let me just copy this link. I apologize, but it was not very intuitive. So let me see if I can just edit my post so that everybody can find us. 1 second, and then we will get crafting. How's everybody's Wednesday going so far? There we go. That is definitely a different link. And so now I am watching the proper thing. And I'm pretty sure my mom is actually watching the wrong one. Hey, Laura. Let me see if I can go into the thing and change it. Usually I have to go into a different spot. Okay, so this evening we are going to be creating with the Nests of Winter collection, the Winterly Treetops, and that's exciting. Let me see if I can watch. I'll end up getting rid of the wrong one. That's what will end up happening here. All right. I understand. And so we're going to be making an arrow card, which is a fancy fold card. And I hope that my mom can figure out which link to come to now that I have deleted the one she was obviously waiting for. All right. So we're going to be using the Nests of Winter. We're going to start out with a piece of cardstock as our base. And we're going to be using gray granite, which is a really lovely gray color. Hey, Laura. And so I have cut just a regular card base size, 5.5 by 8.5. We're going to do some scoring on this so that we can fold it in half. Let me grab my Simply Scored. So we're going to score it along the 8.5-inch side at 4.5. Laura was watching you live before you changed anything. Yes, so you were on the right place. I actually started the video twice and posted what I thought was the correct link. And what I posted was the one that I'm not live on because I started a new one. Yeah. Facebook, or sorry, YouTube was just a little different, very different actually. And so that was a surprise for me. Always gotta love those surprises when you're trying to go live. So I've gone ahead and I've scored it at 4 1/4 along the 8.5 inch side so that we can fold our card in half. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do that. We're going to fold it, make sure everything lines up, and crease it down. And now what I want to do is this card is going to be created on the horizontal. And so I'm going to open my card back up because we need to do a little bit of measuring and a little bit of cutting on our front. So let me grab a pencil. And I'm going to line it up here along the 2-inch line. It'll be down near the bottom of your screen, but that's okay. And what we're going to do is we're just going to mark the center point of this 5.5 inch side, which is 2 3/4. And we're just going to make a little tick mark right there at 2 3/4. Just enough so you can see it. And then coming up this side, we have 4 1/4 until we get to our fold line. And so we're going to measure up 2 1/8. Now 1/8 is halfway in between 2 and 2 1/4. So right there. Okay. We're going to do that same thing on the other side. We're going to come up 2 1/4. Now the measurement you're looking at here is going to be wrong because remember I'm starting at the 2-inch line. And that's all we need to do there. So we're just measuring the front bottom at half, and then we're coming up each side and marking the halfway point. So that's great because this same process will work for any size card you want to do because you're only marking the half and the half. So it's not a specific measurement per se. I gave you a specific measurement, but it was based on the size of my card. So if you wanted to do a 5x7, it will work the same way. You just measure what half of those sides are. Okay. So now what we want to do is a little bit of trimming. For this, I'm going to bring in my small trimmer. And I'm going to, sorry, I'm not doing trimming. That was almost a mistake. Pardon me. I need to do some scoring, but because I'm going on an angle, I'm not going to use my Simply Scored. I could, but I'm not going to because I haven't practiced how to use it. One thing that I did was I marked one of my lines with a marker so that I have something I can line up if I want to do an angle, but I haven't practiced it, so I'm not going to do it on live camera for the first time. That would probably be bad. But what I want to do is we're going to go from our center bottom mark, and let me just lift this up even more. We're going to go from the center bottom up to where the score line meets the left edge. Okay, so what you want to do is get your ruler or your scoreboard or whatever you're going to use for scoring. You're going to line up with your bottom here and where the intersection is, and you're going to score it. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so we're going from the score line up here to the mark down here. Okay, so you want to make sure everything's lined up and then give it a score. And I have done something to my elbow, and whenever I push down on the ruler and then I lift my arm back up, my elbow goes, ow. Ow. It's just complaining a wee bit. Okay, so now we're going to go from our mark at the bottom, the same mark, but this time we're going to meet up with that halfway mark that we made on the left side. So we're going to go from the bottom up to that halfway mark, and we're going to score there as well. Then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now, for those of you who were following along with the crop this past weekend, you might remember an art movement called Art Deco, or you might just know Art Deco from your background knowledge of things of, you know, history and time and place. And I have a feeling that this arrow card would really suit that Art Deco look. Even just those score lines kind of give you a feel of Art Deco. Okay, so now we have 2 score lines on this side coming down to the center bottom and 2 score lines on this side. Okay, first we want to fold the long ones that go all the way here. And we're going to fold them to the inside of our card. So you just want to make sure that you get right down to that point, and we're going to crease it down. Then we're going to come over to this side, and we're going to bend on that score line. Make sure everything lines up, and we're going to crease it down. All right, so we have folded those 2 panels back, and now those angles have disappeared. This would be a fun fold in itself, especially if we turned it around, folded it the other way. That makes a nice little pocket if that was on the front side of our card. But what we want to do now is these secondary score lines that we have right here, we're going to fold those to the front. Okay, so we're just going to score those down. And we should be getting a nice pointy tip there in the center. Crease those down. And then if we fold these up, so those 2 score lines go in and those 2 score lines go in, then you can see that we're creating a shape like an arrow, right? That's like the point of an arrow with the edges. And that's where it gets the name of an arrow fold card. Yay, Mom, you found us. I was hoping you would sort it out. Yeah, YouTube. YouTube has changed since Sunday, and it messed me up, and I ended up having 2 different live videos start, and only one of them was useful. So I was really hoping, fingers crossed, that you would be able to sort that out and find the one that we were on. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want this front pattern on our arrow fold card to stay in place. We don't want it to like leapfrog around on us. So we're going to need to add some adhesive. So I'm just going to grab some adhesive here. We're going to go to the back side. We're going to lift up this, this section here, and we're going to put some adhesive just along that short score line. You see that? Hopefully you can see that. Then we're going to come to this side, and we're going to put adhesive along the short score line. Why are we not putting adhesive along the long score line? Well, that's because when we close this, we might not cover all of it, but this little bit here will help us to stick down our 2 sides. So just along that score line. Okay, now these 2 need to be adhered down like this. So what we can do is we can sort of eyeball where this comes down. Even leave your finger there, and then we can just add some adhesive from that point to the tip. Okay, so we've only added adhesive where we know that that paper is going to hide it. So we'll come to the other side. We'll fold our flap down. We'll kind of take a visual of where the adhesive is going to go to. Add some on there. And then we can fold it down. Okay, now this is the inside of our card. So when we fold it open again, you can see we've got that fun design, which really looks Art Deco, doesn't it? I should have probably shown this during our crop. All right, now that is the base for our card. It's really, I said it's a fancy fold, but it's more of a fun fold because it's not that hard to just make a couple score lines, fold it and glue it. Easy peasy. So now we come to the decorative part of the night, and that's always the fun one, right? So we're going to be starting out with 2 things. We've got our gray granite here. We're going to be adding in a piece of Misty Moonlight. and a piece of the Nests of Winter Designer Series paper, the DSP. And this one is the one that has the beautiful birch trees on it and the little birdies, which is just gorgeous. And I thought, and Samantha helped me choose these colors, that it looked really nice with that gray granite, because that's one of the coordinating colors. Now, the Misty Moonlight is not a coordinating color with this collection. There is Blueberry Bushel and Night of Navy in here, but there's not a lot in the piece that I've picked, and so I'm okay using a slightly different color, which looks lovely with the gray granite. And I also had this color, so that made my decision a little bit easier as I was out of the Night of Navy. And so you use what you have, correct? That's our motto. So our two pieces here, we have our cardstock, which is 5 inches by 4 inches, okay? And then we have our Designer Series paper, which is 4.5 by 3 3/4. When I give measurements, it's always horizontal, then vertical. So 4.5 by 3 3/4. And we need to do some marking on these, just like we did with our card base. So we're going to line ourselves up. Doesn't really matter where. Just make sure you line it up with an inch line somewhere. And we are going to divide it in half. So this is 5 inches. This is where the math comes in handy. Half of 5 is 2.5. So we're going to make a mark at the bottom in the center at 2.5. Is it just me, or does the screen seem really dark? It seems like the video is really dark, but I got lots of light on. All right, so we're in the middle at 2.5. Then our vertical here is 4 inches, so that is easy because then we just mark it 2 inches up on the left. Pardon me. No, we're not marking the sides. Oh my goodness, my brain is in so many directions right now. We only need to mark the center bottom. No worries, just that mark. Super simple. Less math. We're good. Bring in our Designer Series paper. We're going to line it up and we're going to mark it the center bottom. Now this is 4.5 inches. So that means we need to mark it at 2 1/4, which is actually right on that line, right there in the pattern. Now we need to bring in our trimmer. Yeah, it is dark, and I don't know why. We've got so many lights on here. I've got 4 lights, and it seems really dark. I don't know why. Every time YouTube or Facebook does something, it kind of messes with the whole system, right? All right, I'm just trying to adjust. So now what we're going to do, we're going to bring in our little trimmer, or a big trimmer, but little is easier. And we're going to trim from that bottom center mark to the top left corner. Okay, that's our first cut. So let's line this up. So center with the top left corner. And you always got to seesaw back and forth till you get it lined up, inevitably. Okay. Trim. Now don't throw that away. We're going to use that. Now our next cut will be from that bottom mark to the top right. I will have to investigate what has changed with YouTube. And we're going to trim. And then see if we can't sort that out, because it's no fun when you can't see what you're doing. And before we go on, I'm just going to quickly erase that pencil mark. Now you'll notice when I put these down, I put them down the way I cut them. Okay? And that's kind of important. So less so with the cardstock, more important with the Designer Series paper. So we've got our mark here down at the bottom. We're going to trim exactly the same from the top left down to the center at the bottom, and then from the top right down. So top left to the center, like so. And then top right to the center. Seesaw, seesaw. There we go. And we can move that out of the way. And I'm going to just get rid of any little pencil marks that might be lingering. There we go. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to stick these two pieces together. And if you're like me, then gluing triangles is a little bit easier with liquid glue. So I'm going to take my designer series paper and add some liquid glue to the back side. And then stick it on, leaving a little border of the Misty Moonlight all the way around. Like that. Oops. Grab hold of it. And our second piece going down. The good thing also about liquid glue is you have a little bit of swizzle time. You can adjust things if need be. And that can sometimes be important when you're trying to line things up with little borders. So the rule of thumb that I used when I was deciding the sizes of my paper and whatnot was, for this particular size anyway, my cardstock was cut half an inch shorter and half an inch less length and a 1/4 inch shorter than my card base. Then my designer series paper was a half an inch less length and 1/4 of an inch shorter. So you come in half an inch from the sides and a 1/4 top to bottom. And the reason for that is if you look at how this paper is cut, we want to leave borders of both the base and this Misty Moonlight cardstock. And in order to do that, there's going to be a top and a bottom on the vertical, so that gives us a 1/4 of an inch. But on the horizontal, we have 1, 2, 3, like there's 1 gap, 2 gap, 3 gap, 4 gap happening. So that's like double the 2 gaps, right? So that was the reason behind the half an inch on the length and a 1/4 of an inch on the vertical. I hope that makes sense. All right, now let's apply these to our card base. So we're just going to use our liquid glue again. Make sure we get right into those triangle points. And now there is a little bit more leeway on this main center piece just because of shape. So there's a little bit more of it showing. And so what that translates to when we add these other pieces is that these pieces I'm actually going to sort of butt up against that center section because we're already getting a gap of the gray from this center part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this down like so, and then kind of close my front and then kind of wiggle, there's that wiggle room, wiggle that piece so that it kind of comes up to meet this gray flap. You don't have to, but that's what I did. That's why I'm telling you that's what I did. Because otherwise you're going to have 2 gray gaps and it'll be a little bit more spacey than anywhere else. So it's just your own preference, what you want to do with it. And then come to this side and we'll kind of preliminary stick it down, and then we're going to close this and we're just going to adjust it ever so slightly. And there we go. And I had a little bit of smooshing smooshing from my liquid glue there. The other good thing about doing our decorating this way is when we open up, we can clearly see the limits of where we can write our message or stamp our message on the inside, because we have those decorative papers that are guiding our way. Okay, so now on the front of our paper, I want to add some stamped images from the Winterly Treetops stamp set. And so I'm going to be using this pretty little swag here and also this little bird. So I've got those loaded up on my blocks. I'm going to use Memento ink for this. And yes, I do have a scrappy piece of paper. I did order some more basic white cardstock today. So that will be arriving. And that will be good because I'm running out. I'm just down to scrappy bits now. So there's our little bird. Ink up our swag. Stick that on there like that. And put that away for now. And let's do some coloring on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to bring in some Old Olive, which is actually not one of the greens that's in this collection. In this collection, there is Granny Apple Green, there's Garden Green, and there's Shaded Spruce. But because we're using a piece of the Designer Series paper that has no green on it, we can kind of do as we please. So I'm bringing in some Old Olive because I think it looks nice with the gray Granite and the Misty Moonlight. And Samantha also helped me with that. Well, we were doing We Craft Wednesday today. And I'm just going to stick one of my stamp blocks in there and pick up some of the ink from my ink pad. And I'm going to grab a water brush. And we're actually going to do a little bit of painting on these little leaves on this swag. So we're just going to go ahead and apply some Old Olive. And the reason I'm doing this is, yes, I could use a Stampin' Blend to color this, but I don't actually have Old Olive. And so I had tried with the Shaded Spruce and the Granny Apple Green, and it just wasn't doing it for me. So I decided to just do some painting. I know on our Stash Dash this week, one of the parameters for Stash Dash was painting. So this kind of gives you an idea of something that you could do if you were needing to do some painting for a challenge. Just go ahead, grab your water brush, grab some ink, and away you go. Now, the amount of ink that I put on there, I'm not going to use nowhere near that ink. You only need a little touch, and so just keep that in mind when you're getting ready to do this so you don't waste your ink. But if you were doing a whole bunch of these, and because you're activating it with a water brush, you can leave this block here and just keep going back to it. And every time you do, it'll reactivate the ink because it's water-based ink. So we're just going to go ahead and apply that. Just simple brush strokes. We're not doing anything fancy. You will want to really use the tip to get into these. Now, because this is a water brush, as you use it, more water comes out. That is the nature of a water brush. And so that is kind of fun because you get a bit of variation in the green. You get some that's darker, some that's lighter. If you want it to be darker, you just dip back in and pull some more ink in. If you want it to be lighter, just keep painting, and it'll slowly get lighter. And then all of a sudden, it'll get to the point where there's like no color, and you'll be like, ah! And so then you can go back in and get more color. I don't recommend going over a painted spot like over and over and over again, because this is not watercolor paper that we're using. This is just cardstock. And if you brush away at it and add too much water to it, you will actually pill the paper. So then you just, to clean your brush, give a little squeeze, rub it on a tissue, And then once no more ink comes out, it's clean, ready to go for the next time. The inks will stain the brush over time. Don't worry about it. It's all good. Doesn't affect how you use it. All right, so while we're waiting for that to kind of dry, let's go ahead and take a look at our little bird here. And I have some light Night of Navy that I'm going to use to color my bird. Just going to test my marker on the side. And I'm going to do it very loosely. I can leave some white spaces. Let's get both the wings. And there we go. It's that simple. Just a couple little brush strokes, just like we did for our leaves. Then I've got the light Smoky Slate. Just going to test that off to the side. And for this, all I want to do is to add a little bit of contour to the bird. So we're just going to go where there's little sketchy lines and add a little bit of gray. That's it, because we're kind of leaving him as a blue and white bird. That's just adding a little bit of shadow. And then I'm going to come in with the light Copper Clay. Now, Copper Clay is one of the coordinating colors, and we're going to use the light Copper Clay to add some color to the beak, to some of the little branchy bits, to the legs. I'm not going to worry about the stem because we're never going to see that. We can even do these little branchy bits down here. You just want to use the very tip of that brush end. And this was something else too that I kind of played around with. I was trying to use the real red, that's a coordinating color. I tried mixing a couple colors, and then I tried the Copper Clay, and it suited me just better than everything else. Now we're going to come in with the dark Copper Clay, and this is what we're going to color our berries with. We are going to leave that little bit of white. There's like 2 little bits to these berries, most of them. And so we're going to leave a little white spot just for fun. Like so. And this is why we gave that paint a minute to kind of settle in. Because if it was wet and I touched it with this marker, it still might do it. You never know. It would bleed into the water, the wetness. So I'm trying to be careful that I don't get too close. And there we go. That was super simple. And for those of you who are always like, Monica, you and your fussy cutting, I do have the dies for this. Look at that. All right, so let's grab a couple pieces of washi tape. Our donuts, we're using donuts still. And we're going to line up our dies. Now you get to see Monica fiddle around with die lining up. I do tend to be the kind of person who has to stamp, color, and then die cut. Could be because that's how I'm used to doing it when I fussy cut. But I have found that if I take a random shape like this and try to line up my stamp with it, it's an exercise in futility, shall we say. And I realize I'm very low on your screen, but I can't see to line it up if I don't do that. So bear with me. All right, let's grab our die cutter. Ina, what's an arrow card? Well, you'll get to see in half a second when I bring it back in. It just kind of, the way you fold it, this is sort of the layman's terms, the way you fold it, my bird shifted. The way you fold it makes it look like an arrowhead. Let's see if that'll stay. Nope, it wants to keep shifting. Let's try this again. There's no point in going through all the coloring and everything, only to have it cut out weird. So let's try again. Put my tape in a different spot. Perhaps that will help. Sometimes it helps to put 2 pieces of tape. I think it's shifting again. Well, we'll see how it turns out. What's the worst that could happen? Could be wonky, could be fine. There we go. There's always that one little bit of the center that comes. Alrighty. So, yep, that turned out okay. And close enough. Alrighty, let's bring in our card. And before we stick those on, I want to open it up and add our sentiment on the inside. I'm not going to put a sentiment on the front, but I think I'm going to do the sending thanks and much love, which is not, it's not a Christmassy thing. This is the winterly treetops. That doesn't mean it has to be a winter themed card. And I have somewhere a block. So let's stick that on the block. I realize you can't see me doing that, but I just picked it up and stuck it on block. And then we're going to ink it up. Sending thanks and much love. And stamp it on down, hopefully straight-ish, onto our card. Lovely. And we've still left a little bit of space to write our message. Of course, we do always have the full backside of the card, and I'm not going to worry about adding any white cardstock, A, because I'm out of it, and B, because this is light enough, you can write on that, no problem. Okay, so to stick our items on the front, we're going to use some dimensionals just to make it exciting. And what I want to do is I'm actually going to kind of weave my bird into my little swag here. So I've tucked his legs in behind, and I've got his little tail kind of sticking out the front, and I think that's super cute. And then all we have to do is lay him down and add a dimensional, kind of half on, half off those two pieces, and that will help him stick right to our card front and stay in the right place. You could always glue them together, but we're going to just let the dimensionals do the work for us. There we go. And tweezers. Tweezers are our friend when it comes to this kind of thing. Okay, so now we just want to kind of line that up however we want it. I'm kind of going to follow the shape of those little arrow sides that stick out and stick it on down there like that. And then we're also going to add some bling. For this, we're going to use the embellishments that coordinate with this collection. These are the Earth Tone Shimmer Gems, and I think we're going to use these copper clay ones to add a little bit more color in the background and in the foreground and wherever we think we want them. So let me see. Let's add one there. Let's grab a little one. Come on, come along for the ride. And we're going to add that down here. And they kind of look nice. This is going to drive OCD people crazy because I'm just grabbing them from willy-nilly places. Not in order. Alrighty, so there we go. We have our completed arrow card. So if you take a look at this, this is kind of like a pointed arrow coming down. And so that's where the name of the card comes from, just a fun fold. And so we started out with our gray granite. On top of that, we did some scoring and some folding, and you can see that there on the back side. Then we added in our Misty Moonlight and our winterly treetops, nests of winter, designer series paper. We did some fancy footwork with the cutter to get those shapes that we needed. And then, of course, a little bit of painting with our old olive ink on those little branches and some marker work on the bird. And super cute, super simple, stamping our sentiment on the inside. And I think that's fun with a little bit of bling just to sparkle it up. I hope you enjoyed seeing that arrow card come together, and I hope you feel inspired to try this for yourself as well. If you do, be sure to snap a photo of it, pop it in the comments on the Facebook page when I post photos of my card, and then we can all see and be inspired by your artwork. We'll see you again soon, and have a great rest of your day. Toodaloo! Bye!